All right, my good friends, Patrick, Jennifer. The lines are filling up. We're getting ready. I feel like every time I press that start broadcast button, it's kind of like a rocket. Like I'm hitting the start button. I'm waiting for it to start. So here we go. The lines are filling up, folks. Those of you just joining us now, thank you for coming. My name is JG. I'm the Chief Growth Officer for REIN. I have Jennifer Hunt with me, the Vice President of Research and Events. And I also have the big burly man, Mr. Patrick Francie.
The guy who's playing with the slide deck right now.
That's right. We just need him to press play.
There you go.
There you go.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, folks, tell us, I see the lines are filling up fast. Tell us where you're from. Tell us where you're dialing in from tonight, whether you're watching live or listening on the call. Have a chat with us. Let us know where you're from. We'd love to hear from you. We're going to get started in about 60 seconds. I like to give us a few minutes to get the people lined up and lined in. This is going to be a really, really powerful preview. We do this event because it's what am I trying to say? We do it for a specific reason, and it's because we want to have you get the most out of your experience with REIN. And as I get this started, oh wow, we got people coming in from Sudbury, Ontario. That's my kind of place. I'm from Timmins.
Hey, but there's Calgary and Edmonton too. Ooh.
There you.
That's where Patrick's
Patrick's from Edmonton, so we got some Edmonton representation. We got some Northern Ontario. Oh, I see someone from Timmins there. Mike's listening in. Good old Mike's always coming in live. I like that. Fort Mac. Oh, yeah.
There we go.
You got us all beat. That's where the real people are from. That's great. Port Moody.
Port Moody. We're neighbors.
That's great. So, folks, keep letting us know where you're from. I want to say hello. My name is JG. I'm the Embrun. Oh, my gosh. That's awesome. René from Embrun. I used to live in Ottawa, so I'm very familiar with Embrun. Pauline
I
and
wouldn't even try to say that. No.
No, don't, Patrick.
Am I going a little quick? Yeah, I get excited. I get excited. Niagara Falls. We got some more people from Niagara Falls. That's great. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome. This is fantastic. Like I said, the lines are filling up, guys. We're going to get started in about 30 seconds, but you're in for a real treat tonight. We are going to hear directly from Patrick Francie, the CEO of REIN, and Jennifer Hunt, the Vice President of Research and Events. I am going to be your host tonight. My name is JG, and I'm the Chief Growth Officer for REIN. So we're in for a fun time tonight. Let me start by setting up the context of what this is all about. This presentation is going to be set up into 3/4 different parts. The first part, we're going to talk about real estate. And we're going to talk about if real estate is still relevant and why and how it's still relevant and whether it should still be part of your plan for financial freedom. So that's the first thing. The second thing we're going to talk about is the REIN way. So what is the REIN system for investing in real estate? What does it include? And in this particular case, there's 15 steps to our system. We're going to be walking you through that at a very high level. And the reason we do this, folks, is because we want to give you context. We want to give you a room to play in terms of real estate, because you're going to be frequenting REIN. You might come to one of our member meetings. You may come to other webinars. You may download some of our reports. You may read some of our blogs. And it's important for you to understand that REIN has a system. REIN has a step-by-step proven system that we've developed over 27 years. I mean, Patrick was in his 40s when we started, and Jennifer was 3 months old. So,
very kind.
So we 27 years, $5 billion of deals. We've done over just under 40,000 transactions as part of REIN in terms of a community. So this is huge. This is really, really huge. So the first part is real estate still relevant? We're going to answer that question. Second part is, what is the REIN way? What is the REIN system? What is our step-by-step proven model? We're going to talk about that. The third thing is we're going to talk about all access. That's our main membership. That's our main product, is what is all access? And that's the question we get the most. What do you guys cover in all access? What's included? What am I going to get? And how much is it? We're going to cover that. And the fourth part, maybe the best part for you, we're going to do a Q&A section. We're going to do a live Q&A. So as questions come up for you this evening, as something pokes in your mind, I want you to chat it out to me. I'm going to be collating the question here for Patrick and Jennifer, the two smart ones on the call, and I'm going to pepper them with questions at the end. So we're going to do a live Q&A where your questions will get answered. So feel free to put them in the chat and send them as they come up. Send them out to me right away. Don't wait till the end. Just send them as they go, and I'll collate them. So, Patrick, Jennifer, are you ready?
You bet.
Ready.
All right, awesome.
There we go.
So, Patrick, CEO of REIN. And I think, Patrick, one thing, keep in mind, Patrick, these fine folks that are listening tonight, we got people coast to coast, as north as Fort Mac and as south as Niagara Falls and Vancouver and Port Moody. But, Patrick, I think you should start by telling us just a little bit more about REIN, because there's people on this call that this is their first interaction with REIN. They've seen your beard and they thought, man, I want to be more like that guy. How does he grow a beard like that? Tell me more about Patrick Francie and tell me more about REIN.
Okay, so I'm going to do that. So thanks for that, JG, and thanks for getting this going. I would ask one question on the chat because I'm just interested, and I think it will really support us as we go forward and get to the end of this. I'd like to know from the listeners, are you currently an investor, like a real estate investor? So aside from your home, do you own real estate? Put in there what if you own more than one door, or what do you own? I'd just be curious as to understand more about you, because we're going to be talking a lot about us and what we bring to the table. But are you currently an investor? So first and foremost, so just quickly about me, and I don't know how much time we've got over this. I just want to make sure that we're getting questions answered as we go along, or by the end of this call, or this particular webinar. So I'm going to be as quick as I can and be as detailed as I can to accommodate everybody that's listening in. So first, a little bit about me is that I've been actually investing in real estate since 2001. When I became a REIN member. My background is I've been a business owner really since 1984. And one of the businesses that I own in Edmonton still is into its 35th year. It's a retail business. I've got 2 locations in Edmonton. It's called Pro Skate. It's in the ice hockey and ice figure skating industry, and we've been there for 35 years. And that's a going concern. My wife, Stephanie, owns Quantum Speed. So if you're in Edmonton, you need skates or power skating, hey, listen, there's a plug for that. Anyways, that's aside. I'm a business owner. I'm a real estate investor since 2001. Primarily, my real estate portfolio is in Alberta, a little bit in British Columbia. And I've been on the REIN stage for about a dozen years at least. And and here I am today, and happy to be here and happy to be sharing some of the knowledge and some of the learnings that I have along the way.
Thank you very much, Patrick. And that's Patrick Francie, CEO and managing partner of REIN. Jennifer Hunt, tell us, I mean, I'm going to pepper you a little bit with some questions, but give us a little bit about your background, Jennifer, because yours is a little different. You and I have a little bit of that in common, where we went different roads and didn't hear about REIN right away. We joined other and read books and courses and all that stuff. Then we found REIN.
That's right. Yeah. So I am an investor, and I've been investing since 2009, and I have properties in Ontario and multifamily. So Ontario, British Columbia, Hawaii, all kinds, multifamily apartments, right down to vacation condo hotels, which I love, by the way, in Hawaii. That's a great portfolio to be building. But it definitely wasn't always that way. I actually I didn't come up with grow up with a family that was interested in real estate, other than, our own family home. Certainly not investors. My mom was a full-time single mom nurse. And I thought that you just went to school, got a job. So I went and did that, got great grades, all that. And I actually worked for a company I guess it was like 2009 or so, and I got a layoff notice. And they had paid for my master's degree. They'd moved me around North America. I had exceeded every performance review, you name it. And it just really kind of shocked me. I felt very financially vulnerable. I wasn't expecting it. And it was kind of like, that was, at that point, that was my longest relationship outside of my family. And I recognized at that moment that I needed to do something different. I needed to shift gears and take control of my own financial future. And I had no idea how to do that. I met a guy who's now my husband, and he was saying, oh, you know, there's real estate, and he was drawing all these, like, yeah, anyways, so he was talking about real estate, and I became aware of the concept of investing in real estate. So yep, I started reading books, and I took as many courses as possible, and then began building my portfolio. And really what it came down to is later on, so I built a sizable portfolio, and then I found out about REIN in 2016. And, you know, I feel very fortunate to be here because I'm able to support other folks in doing their portfolio and creating and building their portfolio right, because I've seen so many folks who've done it wrong through other organizations. And I mean, things have gone wrong for them. I've been very fortunate that they didn't start at where REIN does. And we're going to be going through the property ladder, but I'm very passionate about following a system so that you protect yourself and protect your assets. And that's where my vision and REIN's vision really truly align in creating financial freedom by design and owning it and being responsible for it.
So it's
Well,
great.
I think that's great, Jennifer, and it really shows the difference between, you know, why we all get into real estate. My story is similar to Patrick's. I've never had a job. I've always been in business for myself. I went right from university to building businesses, and I knew that if I was going to have a retirement plan, I knew if I was going to have financial certainty and financial security, I'd have to do it myself. And I turned to real estate for that. And I started investing in real estate 7 years ago for that reason, and here we are today. So. Patrick, why did you get into real estate originally?
Well, you know, the reason I got into it, I'm glad you asked the question. Actually, Jennifer brought it up for me. Is so back when I was I've owned businesses for 35 years. I've always been a self-employed individual. But here's what I noted is that in my life, I really paid attention to those that I admired, those individuals that I saw successful and how they created wealth. And I knew a lot of very successful business people whose businesses were actually uber successful. I mean, some of them were making millions of dollars, but in spite of how successful their business were, they owned real estate. And in talking to them, and the realization is that when you own your own business, you don't necessarily have a retirement plan. You know, you may not be able to exit your business, and there's all sorts of things that can happen in the world of self-employed, as some of the individuals on this particular webinar will probably know. So I looked at real estate and I said, well, gosh, I need to build a portfolio of real estate, number one, as a part of my retirement plan for my business at some future date, as well as to increase my wealth and my net income that supplemented my businesses. So that's allowed me to do that, and I've been an absentee owner of my businesses in Edmonton for about 15 years now. And part of that is I've also, aside from the revenue that I make there, I also do it through real estate. So that's why I got into real estate. It was a hedge, actually, part of my retirement fund from my existing businesses.
Very cool. Very cool. And that's great. That's awesome. So Patrick, what do we got for tonight? Let's get started. Let's answer the first question is, why real estate?
Why real estate? Well, there's a couple of examples of why real estate right there. One is as a retirement, one is as a future. But when we look at real estate and we talk about, you hear us say the REIN way, that's because we do have a certain way we do things. We have history. We have 27 years of I guess, building systems and providing knowledge and education, as well as resources for real estate investors. But we talk about financial freedom by design. That's why real estate. It is really looking at real estate as a way to secure your financial future. Many would say that directly, indirectly, one of their goals is financial freedom, which for some will have all sorts of meanings to what that is. But ultimately, we know that that is an operating system, if you will, or one of the goals of many. So in the context of real estate, a long-term REIN member, a very sophisticated REIN member, a guy by the name of Thomas Byer, used to say that buying real estate was like a 3-course meal. And we looked at that, and it was really a great analogy or metaphor, depending on how you presented it, for real estate investors to wrap their mind around it. Then Jennifer, being the research-focused systems person that she is, looked at it and she goes, no, 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 this isn't a 3-course meal. This is actually a 5-course meal. She would present it to be a 7-course meal, but we really, because she likes to eat, so we just come back and we say, let's make it a 5-course meal for tonight. So Jennifer, you can take this one away, and let's just talk about the 5-course meal that real estate is.
For sure. Thank you, Patrick. And yes, there really are 7 courses, but we do need to keep this, maybe we could talk about this for hours. So we'll just talk about the 5 main courses, and we can wrap our heads around it. So when you consider a 5-course meal, so we typically start with an appetizer and then go into a salad, and then we have an entree. And a dessert, and potentially a sorbet at the end. And maybe you can click there, Patrick. You might have a sorbet at the end, or an espresso, or maybe a digestif. And when you look and consider, when I first started out, for example, I thought that cash flow is king. It is very important. But I thought that cash flow was really the main thing. So when I first learned about real estate, as I told you, a number of years ago, okay, well, I better run out and get a lot of doors if I want to meet my vision and my goals. So I thought I needed over 100 doors, and it was super stressful. And I went running out, trying to buy as many as possible. And then when I came to REIN and we started working through this 5-course meal of, on a buy and hold, this is just a buy and hold sort of longer term strategy, but it's one of the ways that we can leverage real estate. I realized that the cash flow it's just the appetizer, which is cool because that means that there's something else that's an entree, and we're going to get to that in a second. But the entree is where that the main meal is. So now we're in Toronto and greater Toronto area, and Vancouver and the Metro Vancouver area, and some of the other, of course, locations around Canada. Appreciation has been quite high, and it's been like that for some time. And we've seen markets go upwards of 30%, and that still isn't even the entree. So that to me is interesting. And I'll just have you go back a little bit first, Patrick. With appreciation. And so what we do when we are doing our research and our analysis is that we actually focus it on 3%. We stay in line with Canadian inflation rate. That's it. Although you might get more, and we'll time your market because you'll get the top 10 towns reports, and REIN actually locates, and we'll talk about that in a minute, of where to buy, when it is in the real estate cycle, and even what tactic to employ or to avoid in any particular of our top 10 markets in Ontario, British Columbia, and Alberta. So we provide solutions to that. And then when it comes to the entree, this is where you get your main course. This is like the most nutrients, you look forward to it. And it's silent. A lot of people don't even pay attention to it because it's not sexy, that's for darn sure. But your principal buy down is the mortgage. It's really your mortgage buy down. And it's mortgage buy down when your tenants pay you pay the bank. And this is important that you pay mortgage and your principal, and you're paying for your interest. So you need to be not just an interest-free loan. This has got to be paying the principal down, and then going through and paying that down. And it's kind of cool because you get a mortgage statement once a year, and you can really see some incredible equity buildup that happens there. And it's like a forced savings plan, and it can be a really beautiful thing when we get to the sorbet. So we'll get there in a second. Let's go to dessert. So dessert would be your forced appreciation. And forced appreciation is capital improvements, renovations, renovate to rent, or even some sort of, just way that you improve the capital. Now, we actually do teach courses on that, right, of actually how to renovate with a budget and how to do it effectively. And then the final course is like an annuity, a sorbet. Now, an annuity, the best way for me to describe it is, if you've ever heard of that lottery Set for Life, which is once every week or something, a lottery. So it's a Set for Life lottery. Can everybody hear me okay?
I can. I hope everybody can.
Okay, I hope so too. Awesome. So at any rate, with the Set for Life lottery, thank you everybody. Okay, yes, you can hear me. So what happens is you can get like, $1,000 a month or $1,000 a week for 25 years. So now let's relate this back to real estate. And if you take a very typical
cash for life.
Cash for life, that's it. So I don't play the lottery because I just do real estate. I do not gamble. So thank you. So cash for life. So 25 years is a typical mortgage amortization period. So let's say, you've been doing everything right and you've been having your tenants pay down your mortgage that whole time. And in 25 years, now you're mortgage free. You own your property, what they call is clear title. So it's all paid off. And then at that point, all of the money that was coming to you, of course, you've got your cash flow, but all of the money that was going to pay the mortgage and pay that principal and interest down now comes to you. And that's a significant amount if you think about your mortgage payment over those 25 years that comes to you. So it really is that cash for life. And it's a great way to be considering your future and how you set up for your retirement.
Awesome. Thanks, Jennifer. So once again, that's as I said earlier, is that this is really just a way to think about real estate and grasp the concept of another way of looking at what it really means. Now, one of the things that REIN has done for years is developed what we call the property ladder, which is really a step-by-step proven system for investing in real estate. Now, this property ladder wasn't that many years ago where it was a 10-step property ladder. And as it evolved and changed, our job is always to stay ahead of the curve of what real estate investors need and what they need to learn. And so we came up with the property ladder many, many years ago, and it's evolved and changed. But really we start on the bottom rung, which is what we call your beliefs. And without getting into the story of why, it was really about a dream. It was about a vision. We talked about it earlier, JG. It's really your why. So your beliefs, your ethos. It's why are you investing in real estate? What is the outcome you're trying to achieve? And what does financial freedom by design or financial freedom period even mean to you? Why do you want to achieve it? What is the bigger purpose? And lots of times it's legacy and children and grandchildren, and it's time on the beach, and it's vacations, and it's just free time, whatever it might be for you. But when you have that and it's really, really strong and it's really true for you, then you do what it takes to achieve that outcome.
But I know, Patrick, if I could just jump in real quick, I got to say that I have to admit that when I first became a REIN member 7 years ago, I had, like Jennifer, done many other courses, read many other books, and I noticed that they all the time jumped into interest rates and cap rates and spreadsheets and this, that, and the other thing. And when I saw that REIN started as the foundational piece, when you guys started with Belize and my why, I knew you guys were the real deal, because I knew that you guys knew what I wanted out of it. It's important to think as a real estate investor, as you're starting on your real estate investment career, you want to think about, why do I want real estate? What is real estate going to do for me as an investor? And a lot of people don't start with that question, believe it or not. A lot of people start with cap rates and spreadsheets and rents and all the various things that real estate can drag you into, but it's really about your why, Patrick. To me, that's the foundation right there.
Thanks for that, JG, because it's such an important part of it. Otherwise, you get tired, and you got to be able to link to your dreams, because it's not an easy road to travel necessarily. The decision maker is something that we're going to speak to, but that's really about time, money, knowledge. We'll dig into that a little bit deeper. I'll leave that in suspense, because that's a great and important conversation to have around the second rung of the ladder. The business of real estate. A long time ago, Don Campbell had made the statement, treat your real estate investing like a business. It's actually how I met Don Campbell. I don't even know if JG knew that story, but it's how I met Don Campbell. I think, Jennifer, you knew, which was back in 2001, 2002, when I was a REIN member. I was self-employed. The realization that I had was, and I said to Don one day, I said, Don, to me, that means something. Treating something like a business means something, because I'm a business. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a business owner. But for somebody in the room who I don't know, has a trade or is a career individual, a doctor, a nurse, whatever that might be, it doesn't necessarily have a meaning. So what does treating your real estate investing like a business even mean? And so that's part of the educative component of what we provide REIN members. How do we treat our real estate investing like a business, and what does that even mean? And so that can be intimidating for some, but we take the edge off and really explain what that means.
Well, and I love that you mentioned that, Patrick, and it's great coming from you with all of your years of business and running several businesses very successfully in the systems, but also the conversation of who you need to be in order to be a successful entrepreneur. And all of that is a part of the journey that you talk about and that we support our REIN community with.
We get feedback time and time again from REIN members that this third step was absolutely epic, paramount for their success. They didn't consider it, and they were already investors when they came on board. It opened up a whole door of opportunities in how they think about things. The power of leverage, understanding leverage, why it works, how to best use leverage. Now, we often think about leveraging money. That's probably 90% of the people on this webinar, and that's a generalization, probably not fair, but think about leveraging money. But how do you leverage your knowledge and your education? How do you leverage time? That's a huge one. And how do you leverage resources and community and relationships? Because leverage is how we grow in business, how we grow in real estate, how we grow in life. And there's so many different ways of leveraging and using the power of leverage to grow and to expand. Your financial house, this is such an important one, because in order to get capital as a mortgage and a deal with the bank, or to actually attract capital as perhaps a joint venture, or if you're raising capital for a project, having your own financial house in order is incredibly important. I'd like to just use the expression that was taught to me many years ago, which at the time resonated after I explained it, which was, I was told, Patrick, you can't steal in slow motion. And I was not about stealing. And when I asked the question, he goes, what I mean by that is that you need to be prepared to pull the trigger on a deal when it shows up. And sometimes really great deals show up because they're time sensitive, as an example. And if you're prepared and you know what's going on and your financial house is in order, you can pull the trigger, get that deal handled really quickly. So having your own financial house in order is incredibly important.
Yeah, and another part of that's so important, Patrick, and another part of that is having it so you're having your financial house in order and also strategically positioned to support point number one, which was your why and your power, your beliefs, and what you're looking for to get out of real estate. So we walk through, a real strategic plan that's customized for each REIN member based on where they currently are and how to get to where they need to be.
Yeah, so thanks for bringing that up.
Well, and that's it. If I can just expand on that, because it's actually because the questions are pouring in, guys. By the way, attendees, you guys are doing an amazing job. I've never had so many questions come in so quickly. It's awesome.
Are they tough, JG? Are they tough?
They're tough. They're good. Keep bringing the questions, folks. But that was one of the questions is this a one shoe fits all kind of scenario, or is this customized for everyone? I think, Jennifer, you just answered that. The way REIN is developed with our property ladder in our system is if you're brand new, you're going to get exactly what you need. If you have 2-4 doors and you're looking to get to 10 doors, you're going to get what you need. And if you have 10, 20, 30 doors and you want to get to 100, 200 doors, you're going to get what you need, because you're going to get different elements of the system based on where you are and where you want to go.
Yeah, and at any time, a REIN member, either when you're first starting or partway through your REIN member journey, at any time can take advantage of the REIN community and our experts and get a portfolio planning session or portfolio review. So either a review or a plan, and whether you're first starting out, you get a plan, put that in place, but then to review it because things change and your portfolio changes and maybe your beliefs have shifted, and always staying and getting the support that you need to be on track to where you need to go.
I
get portfolio reviews every year or two at most, but mostly every year.
Yeah. Okay, so we got to keep moving, guys, because we'll be here all night.
We get too excited. We get too excited.
I mean, if it's okay with our guests, then I'm happy to do it. So there's a couple points here on this ladder that are really incredible. So that is the market research, and that's about where, and that's REIN Property Goldmine Score. How do you determine where to buy real estate? And the Property Goldmine Score card is actually a checklist, and that you actually can go through and say, is this making sense? I'm going to go back to a phrase that we often use, which is, we will teach you to fish. And sometimes we'll even tell you where to fish, but we're then going to say, but make sure you have learned why we're actually telling you to go there. Understand why that is. And then on the other side of it is the real estate cycle scorecard. Now, Jennifer's our Vice President of Research, and so she's going to speak to these so that we can dig down a little bit later, so she hits on the points that we really want to make with the listeners on this webinar.
Yeah, you bet. And the market research is one of the reasons why after joining REIN and finding out about REIN, that was, like you were saying, JG, in terms of the beliefs, that really resonated for you. And the market research really resonated for me because I've seen so many folks who started at, I think where we get into it is point 11. So there's 11 steps that we do before other organizations get into, start where they start. And so that research is so important. So we actually provide top 10 town reports, transportation reports. You might going, why transportation? We're talking real estate. Because it actually has a correlated effect on your values and your real estate and your rents. So switching gears to the Property Goldmine Scorecard, that's where we have a checklist and we go through and we look at 40 indicators. There's a few more of them that we do when we're doing our reports, but what we have for you is 40 indicators that you're going to be looking for, and then we're able to put that into a real estate cycle and find out where the market is. So there's 16 indicators that get looked at to identify a cycle. And then step 8, if I may, Patrick, is the tactics. So you will get the where, when, and how to invest in real estate investing. So not only do we teach you how to do it yourself, because you might be in a market or want to be in a market that isn't a top 10, and that's totally okay. Just because it's not a top 10 doesn't mean that it's not a great place, as long as you apply your own diligence. And so we teach you how, but then we also do it for you in the top 10 towns in Ontario, Alberta, and British Columbia.
Okay, great. So finding properties. So there's something I want to say here that is important. So for the individuals, so those people are just starting and getting into the real estate investing world, this is a way for you to learn and actually strategically take on learning investing in real estate. For some of the advanced investors, or for those of you who just started out, this is a way for you to take a look at your existing portfolio. And I can tell you that thousands of REIN members later, we often have people who are seasoned investors who join and go, I wish I would have known this before I built my portfolio. And so there's a little, I don't know why I'm saying that. I'm saying that just as a warning, is that, you know, use this as a tool in this learning as looking at your portfolio and then considering what you may have to do to risk mitigate and or expand on, you know, change direction sometimes. That's kind of a, I don't know, a bit of a warning around sometimes how these things show up for people. Finding properties is a whole conversation, but looking and finding deals or attracting deals, that's a different conversation. But ultimately, finding properties is a strategy. There are ways to do that effectively, and so those are one of the key parts of learning and becoming a great real estate investor. Cash flow zone is a methodology. It's a filter that you can quickly look at a property and say, this one's worth another look at. I can look at this one quickly, so that you're not over analyzing every single property, because actually when you look at it, the truth is that not all property, very few properties actually work. So this is a way for you to look at the properties, get clear on it quickly. Did you want to add anything to that, Jennifer? You look like
no, well, no, that's great. We do actually have it in our app, in our member back office, so readily at your fingertips. So it's something that's easy and accessible.
Got it. Cool. Offers. Now some people really dig this part of it, right? Writing and negotiating offers. Others get intimidated by it. But the cool thing about it is that writing creative offers and negotiating deals are really fun for some people. And they get really good at it. So for example, writing an offer, some of you may know this strategy, but ultimately we say all the time, every offer that you submit should have a cover letter. Well, some people go, well, what's a cover letter? Now, but yet we suggest always a cover letter, doesn't matter what the conditions are. JG, you use cover letters on yours?
I do use cover letters, and every single time, whether I'm using agents or whatever the case may be, I get always this feedback. I've never seen a cover letter on an offer before, which is why I win most offers that I submit for.
It's true. And good realtors, by the way, investor-focused realtors that know this trick will be working with their clients to actually write a cover letter to bring it in. So it's very, very important. That's just one part of what we do.
And this is Patrick, this is where, like, from number 12 and up, this is where because there's a lot of people on the call actually that are experienced investors. They have 2, 4, 6, 8 doors. So this is where, folks, you may be experienced in real estate, maybe a little, maybe a lot, but there's some incredible tricks, tips, strategies in here that will definitely up your game as it results to you growing your portfolio. And that's what it's all about. If you want to keep growing your portfolio, just look at 12 through 15, and there's some major tactics in there.
So only because I saw the question pop up, somebody said, what would you include in a cover letter? So I'm going to link, and I'm going to go off tangent a little bit. So JG, Jennifer, watch the time. So finding properties and offer writing and negotiating. So for example, if you buy a property, a particular property, let's say you bought a bungalow, we'll just use that as a quick example, could be a townhouse, doesn't matter. And then you say, this is a great area, I wish there was other properties. Well, guess what? So finding properties, you go 3 doors to the right, 3 doors to the left, you go straight across the street, 3 doors to the right, 3 doors to the left, and you write a handwritten note saying, if you're ever interested in selling your property, please give me a phone call. Handwritten note, you put it in there, and that's one way of finding properties. The reason that is relative to the story that I'm sharing with you in writing offers is because it's handwritten, and you can say, I'm really interested in your property. I love this property. So that's the first part. Then in negotiating and writing the offer, you look at the property and you speak to the values of the person that you're buying the real estate from. So if you're buying a house from a couple that you're going to use it as an investment, doesn't matter. You're actually going to say, dear vendor, I really appreciate how well you looked after your property. You obviously love this property. It looks like it was well cared for, and you did a brilliant job of that. And I would be very interested in buying your property to carry on the care for that property, the care in the community. So you speak in the values of the vendor. All you're doing is acknowledging them for what they've accomplished, and that you share in those common values. And often that is the offer that stands out. Jennifer, Nate, or Jennifer, JG?
Yeah, no, great job.
Okay, great.
I've used that one several times. It's worked every single time I've used it. And also, I'm gonna tease the audience members. So Patrick, do not bite on this bait I'm about to put out there.
Okay.
But the double offer works really, really well as on top of that.
You're right. Good job. I won't say anything. Working with the bank. Now, this is incredibly important. It goes back to almost all the way down to your financial house and having your financial house in order. But working with the bank is so incredibly important given the lending conditions that we're now facing, the stress test, all of the things that we have going on. So working with the bank is about putting a strategic plan together. It's about understanding that it isn't just about getting the first deal, your first deal done, your second deal, or your third deal done. It's like, what happens on my fourth deal? What happens on my seventh deal? That's where the strategic plan comes into place. Now, when we launched the REIN Finance Center over 3 years ago, we saw the direction of the finance rules. We saw where it was all going, and we wanted to wrap our arms around REIN members and give them the opportunity to actually be cared for by real estate investor focused lenders. In other words, a mortgage broker that deal and understand what real estate investors are going to bump up against and face when they're trying to buy multiple doors and grow a portfolio. Normal banks, you're going to run into 3 doors and they're going to go, yeah, you don't make enough money, give me more information, I don't like this, this is out of my comfort zone, because banks are mitigating risk. Last one is managing for cash flow. Depending on what strategy you're going to use, if you're buy and hold, but also ultimately we're always looking for cash flow, either be it from a buy and hold rental property or from an income-based strategy, we're looking to get cash flow. Okay.
And this one, that last one there, Patrick, that last one about managing cash flow, Jennifer gave an example just a while ago where, you know, she just saved it. Well, Jennifer, go ahead, you tell the story. It's so
yeah,
good.
Right. That was just last week. Always having different strategies and being on top of it, you know, managing for cash flow. And you never know where you might get a new tip at one of our events or, you know, in our community or whatever have you. And you never know when it'll come up. And here you go. This is a brand new tip. Has anyone noticed that fuel, like the prices of fuel, have been going down? Maybe not the consumption, but generally speaking, it's going down. And we contacted our waste removal company because they were charging us a fuel surcharge. And we thought, you know what, that just doesn't seem right these days. There just shouldn't be a fuel surcharge on it. The rates have been going down. We've been paying this fuel. So we called them up, renegotiated, got the fuel surcharge off, and now we're saving. I mean, that's just $1,000 just like that. So check your fuel surcharges.
Well, there's always ways. That goes right to your bottom line, so it's worth the time and energy to do it. And when you look at it over a long period of time, guess what? Makes a big difference.
Yeah, and over a portfolio, and then you learn that tip and apply it to your portfolio, and then another tip and apply it to your portfolio, and all of a sudden you are really improving your net operating income.
Thanks for sharing that. That's a good one. I like that thought process. Okay, we carry on. Where am I going? Now, sorry, I'm out of control with my buttons here. The decision maker. This goes back to what we talked about a little earlier on, which is the decision maker is about where are you in entering the conversation of being a real estate investor. Now, this is a matrix that I'm going to let Jennifer speak to it because she's great on the topic, but ultimately it boils down to when we take on real estate investing, we have to be really aware. This is so important. We've seen it so many times over the years where people get disillusioned because they go in, I'm going to be a real estate investor, and that's awesome, but they haven't gone in understanding that, hold it, there's some things I have to consider. I have no money, or I have lots of money, or I have no money and I have time, or I have money but I don't know, I have no knowledge, or I have any combination of these three, but I can't do all three, or I can only do one of three. But this is really where the decision maker goes. Now, not the decision maker in terms of should I invest in real estate or not, but given what I have going on, I have money, but no time, then it's going to say, well, what's my strategy to invest in real estate? Where do I enter that conversation? So Jennifer, I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, so if you just reflect on who you are and where you are in your real estate career right now, just consider what you have most of. And once you consider that, we can flip to the next slide actually. You can really start to see the options and the available paths that become available to you. So if you've got money, joint venture partner, being a co-venture money partner, you can basically
Jennifer,
lend.
Can I just jump in?
You bet.
I just want to jump in because I would like to ask the listeners, where do you fit into this, folks? You know, as
Great. I
Jennifer's
wanted to
going
ask that
through,
too.
think about yourself and where do you fit in, and put in the chat where you fit in. We'd love to know. We'd love to help you. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Jennifer.
and you
Sorry.
know what, JG, this is a fabulous, and everybody out there, please put in who you are, and we can then start. It's a fabulous way, and I don't know if everybody can see each other or not, but in terms of your responses, but you can start creating partnerships yourself, because maybe somebody's got money and somebody's got time and someone's got knowledge, and all of a sudden you've got the financial freedom triumvirate, the three key ingredients, and you could create some really wonderful partnerships for yourselves. So with money, again, there's all sorts of alternative ways to invest those funds. So there's REITs and there's mix. So, I should step back. Real estate investment trusts, mortgage investment corporations, limited partnerships, turnkey deals, buy and hold flips. So while you might not have, let's say you have money, you don't have a lot of time or knowledge, those are great options for you. However, I do want to be mindful that even if you have money and time, but you don't have the knowledge, you still need to know your markets. So, and I know that it's really important for the group here to recognize that the scorecard and the cycle, all of that applies to apartments and to commercial properties and things like that, but they do operate at a slightly different schedule. I think that was one of the questions, so we can dig into that deeper later. But at any rate, and if you have lots of knowledge, this is cool, because we at REIN, we've been doing this a long time. We've got a lot of expertise, and you can get into really creative strategies. So there's a whole list here. We won't go through them all, mostly acronyms, of course, but agreements for sale, rent to own, vendor takebacks. And once you start getting all of these tools in your toolbox, which we teach at REIN, particularly at our Acre event and others as well, and in our member meetings too, we actually can really start leveraging different ways of doing that. And then people with money will be attracted to our knowledge. And then that way you can do and create different kinds of partnerships, which brings us to the next point, is if you're knowledge and you've got some time, you may be the joint venture working partner. So the co-venture working partner, and supporting the folks with the money and helping them create wealth, the real estate. And then, of course, if you have more time and not as sufficient money and not as sufficient knowledge, or you're just getting started out, or you know that this is something you want, then real estate education is absolutely the first place to start. And you know, another small thing that you can do if you've got time, if let's say you've got even a home, or if you have a rental property, like maybe you're even a tenant yourself, you're really just starting out, you can ask your landlord, hey, can I paint it? Can I get it fixed up? Can I do this? Got to get permission and all of that. But then you get to actually start practicing becoming a renovator. And becoming a renovator or fix and flip is a great tactic to do on a small scale when you've got a lot of time on your hands and not a lot of money. It's a little bit of do it yourself.
Thanks for that, Jennifer. One of the keys here that I'm just going to emphasize again is that if you come into this world of investing in real estate and being a real estate investor, understanding where you're at and being honest about where you're at, and maybe even getting some guidance or having some conversation around it, you're setting yourself up for success, as opposed to setting yourself up to be stuck. Because so many people come into this as, I want to be a real estate investor, and they get stuck because it hadn't occurred to them that, holy cow, I have lots of time and I have lots of money, I know nothing, or I know lots about real estate, but I have no time. So there's all sorts of scenarios that when you have some awareness around it, it's a game changer.
It is. And I just see, Edward, you just asked about what turnkey is, and I might have gone over that very quickly. So turnkey, so it's in that sort of section. This is a Venn diagram, by the way. And so knowledge and money. So if you've got money and maybe a little bit of knowledge, you may consider a turnkey property, which is really something that is, maybe it's a titled property, so you actually purchase a property, but it's got property management in place. It might be, so for example, a condotel, which is basically a hotel. It's a room in a hotel, and then it runs in the rental pool and it's managed professionally, and you don't have to do a whole lot of active managing of that particular asset. Whereas if you have money and no time and no knowledge, or limited knowledge, because remember, you always want to have some knowledge, then those other ones could be great for you. They're basically more hands-off entirely.
And that's the intention. For turnkey is just that. It's turnkey. It could even offer rental guarantees. It can be that turnkey. So there's all sorts of things that are in place for that.
Yeah, you bet.
Now, this goes to you again, Jennifer, because this is really the long-term real estate success formula.
This is Jennifer's baby right here. Like, this is Jennifer's baby.
But I want to qualify it. I want to qualify this because this is really what REIN was built on. This was a conversation that Don R. Campbell started many years ago, even before he wrote the book Real Estate Investing in Canada, one of his many bestsellers, but the biggest selling Canadian real estate book in history to this day. And he wrote that back in, I think, 2006, by the way. Still very relevant today, although it's going to be updated at some point. Different story. The point is this, is Don got really clear that when he went forward in the education space, he said, I'm going to change the conversation of real estate investors from speculating to investing. And we're going to do that by talking about the economic fundamentals that drive a real estate market, not just a real estate market in buy and sell, but a real estate market in rents, and understanding that there is a very clear cycle, there's a very clear way that real estate acts given what's going on economically in any region. Proven, tested, back tested, always tested. It just works.
Patrick, you're becoming as passionate about this formula as I am. The way you just
it works. It works. This is epic. This is foundational.
It really is, and it's yeah, you nailed it. I mean, it really is. It's a formula. It's correlational. There's times in there. There's time frames. Like at 12 months after, like a gross domestic product grows or contracts. But if there's a gross domestic product event, like a big announcement, like an LNG Canada announcement, like major capital spending for an Amazon, for example, in Ontario, that they just
GM, like GM, the GM plant.
That was where it was announced where it's going down, right? Yeah, so that will impact the economic health of Oshawa, for example, in a negative way. And yes, this formula works in reverse. So going down, that is. So if we have a gross domestic event, if you will, that's okay. And we're going to stick with this one because we just got the success formula in front of us. And you're going to increase, they're going to now have jobs, and then the jobs, that doesn't happen until 12 months later. And so then you watch it month by month, and you'll see the population comes in to take the jobs. They need a place to live. The rents go up, the vacancies go down, all of that. And then that's 18 months to 2 years when you start to see all of that activity actually occur in the market prices. So in other words, ladies and gentlemen, we have a 2-year preview on what a market will do. And that's where the REIN conversation is so different and so strategic, because we're looking at the news and we're watching the news, but we see it differently because we've already seen it from 2 years ago, because we're actually monitoring the economic health, which drives the real estate prices. So it might look like, we're calling a market, but we can see it because we're looking at the indicators that drive the market. And yeah, we get passionate about it. This is only 8, by the way, it's a cheat sheet, and it is a formula, which is great. And I do recommend that if you take nothing else from this, that you do take this, like, please feel free, take a picture. This is game changer for your real estate. But this is only 8. When we do our property goldmine scorecard, we look at 40. When we're doing our top 10 towns reports, we're looking at over 40 indicators. So we dig deep, and we have a number of cheat sheets to help get you started, but we go way further.
Thanks, Jennifer. Anything you need to add to that, JG?
Well, just for me, this is like my crystal ball. I mean, I find this so powerful because, like you said, Jennifer, it kind of, to me, it's almost like cheating. It's like I see it coming before it's coming, which is fantastic. And this is what allows me to be a strategic investor instead of a speculator. And I think that's such a powerful tool, and I can't thank REIN enough for putting this kind of thing together, because otherwise you would be influenced by everything that's going on in the news. Like a lot of questions that people are asking is, are interest rates going up or interest rates going down? Well, I'm very curious, Jennifer, why are interest rates not on this chart? Let me throw you a slow pitch right there.
Oh, because they are a market influencer. So they're an indicator. We've got about 7 or so indicators that are called market influencers, and they're more qualitative. They're not, hard fact economic fundamentals. These are all just economic fundamentals. But what happens is you get any one of those sort of 7 or so market influencers, like political changes, policies, interest rate, foreign exchange rates, all of those things that are kind of a little bit more nebulous, harder to kind of pin down, or can get changed. Those can influence and make it feel as though the cycle, and we're not talking about the real estate cycle in this formula, so I just want to be mindful of that. It certainly drives it, but there's other elements that have to come into play. This is only 8, we need to look at 16 indicators for a full real estate cycle, because I know that's a question. But yeah, but when it comes to interest rates, they can impact this, but they're outside of that scope. So we want to make sure that that's where we have our what's behind the curtain, and we're constantly, or what is the segment that we do, we provide, and making sure that we're sharing what's going on, because it can shift your real estate. But
awesome, that's great. Thank you for that, Jennifer. Patrick, let's keep rocking and rolling, because we got so many questions to answer. The list is building.
So when we talk about what REIN is all about, and I want to go back here 1 second, and that is that JG, you asked a great question, and I think that probably came from one of the guests on this particular webinar. But we talk about what the economic fundamentals are, and then what Jennifer talked about was an influencer, which JG brought up. Well, what about rising interest rates? What about the banking stress test? What about the politics that are happening in the world? All influencers, and understanding the difference between an influencer and an economic fundamental is the difference between the people that are going, the sky is falling, and sophisticated investors going, wow, look at this opportunity that's showing up. And what's behind the curtain that Jennifer referred to is really about what we do is we take all those headlines that are freaking people out and that they're making decisions on, and we go down and say, okay, what's real? And what do we need to pay attention to? So I just wanted to expand on that.
Yeah, and gotta go. One more. I see lots of questions about Alberta, and if Alberta is on this, where is it? And I think it's, you know what? Can I share it? I will. All right.
Okay, go.
So we don't look at Alberta as a province, but we do look at Calgary and Edmonton and all of our top 10s in the actual cities. But what I will tell you is that at SOS Calgary, March 1st to March 3rd, we're going to be telling everybody where all of those top 10 markets are in their cycle right now. So we're curating the data, but I can give you a hint. And that is that GDP is, for the most part, increasing across Alberta. And that's good news. So there you are. That's a little hint.
A nice slow grow. Okay, we talk more about what is REIN all about and what is it that we're trying to support real estate investors in. I mean, education is, really at the foundation of everything that we do. What we call our ACRE event, or our Authentic Canadian Real Estate Program, is an event. We have 4 a year across the country, 1 in Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver, Toronto. This year we're doing an SOS. I don't want to confuse the issue, but ultimately we're accommodating the education that is necessary for members in whatever geographic region they are. ACRE is our absolute foundation of education. That kicks off, it's really 2.5 days, 2.25 days of nothing but education about real estate and understanding. Now, on top of the live events, we have what we call our home study ACRE, which is the opportunity for really real estate investors to learn at their pace in the comfort of their own home and to review and reflect. Because live events are awesome, by the way, and we love them, but you get home and you're overwhelmed with information, and the home study is a way for you to stay connected and keep going, drilling down on the education of it.
And Patrick, just to connect ACRE, essentially ACRE goes through the property ladder, the 15 steps that you covered, but in detail.
Great point.
That's
much
right.
greater detail.
And particularly in the manual, the home study, if you will, all of the checklists, all of the SOPs are right in there, so you get them all.
What's that SOP there, geeky lady
Oh,
over there?
sorry. A standard operating procedure or a checklist, all of the things that you need in order to make your business successful.
And I want to just, because it's a point here, we'll get to it at the end. I'm going to say that on the Acre events, if you're a REIN member, you don't have to be a REIN member to attend them, but you would pay for that event. If you choose to become a REIN member, this Acre event is all 4 of them right across the country. If you want to travel, that's all free with your membership. It's all included in your membership. So I'll just take that opportunity to say that. But these have been doing for years. These are awesome. They are really foundational. Now, the next phase of understanding and being successful in real estate is being clear on what does it take to be successful. Because it isn't just always education. Because there's a phrase that is used that I guess there's a quote that's really great that's saying if more knowledge was the answer, we'd all be billionaires with 6-pack abs, right? So the reality of it is that more knowledge isn't enough. And what we always have learned, or what we've really learned, is that to be successful at anything, you need to put yourself in the right conditions. So first off, you need a trusted source of development. When we talk about development, we're talking about personal, professional development. We're talking about development as a realtor. Learning even in the environment that we create is the opportunity for introverts to actually come out of their shell and learn how to shake hands and say hi to people and stretch themselves. The education is unparalleled, and the research, we've just touched on it, and it's really only such a thimble of what we provide in terms of research economically. The next part of success and building your real estate wealth is really the environment that you put yourself in. So important. Now, the member meetings that some of you may have even attended at some point, but if you have, great. If you haven't, the member meetings is really bringing yourself into a live environment with other like-minded individuals. It's about community of people that really understand, number one, maybe the challenges you're facing, or the strategies, or what you can learn, because you're talking to other people that are in the trenches just like you are, doing real estate deals, learning and actually participating. So I know that on this particular webinar, there's some experienced people in the room. Well, guess what? It's like having money. There's always somebody with more. And with real estate, there's always somebody with more, have learned some things, that share. And that's that cross learning that happens by actually dealing with somebody that aren't just talking theory. They're in the trenches. They're doing it. And so they get to share insights and learning that they've had, and REIN members are historically, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Patrick, and even solving problems together. And, just last week in the BC meeting here in Vancouver, it was awesome to witness a couple of people who, had a problem, got together and had that conversation and completely solved it. And, that's the power of a really amazing community with some smart people.
You're totally right, Jennifer. It's so comforting. It was so comforting to me when I first started to know that I would sit at a table with people who have been there for 5, 10, 15, 20. So a lot of the members are like 20, 25-year veterans. And what seemed, and I loved it. I'll always remember this when I sat at a table one time and I was going through a particular challenge. At least I thought it was a challenge. And when I posed the question to the person in front of me, the gentleman said, he just kind of like, yeah, been there, done that. Here's what you do, bang, bang, bang. And I just thought, wow, what seemed like an earth-shattering problem to me, this gentleman is just laughing off and gives me the exact formula of how to overcome my issue. And all of this in a matter of 2 minutes. I mean, wow, what that's the power of the environment. And you know what, Patrick? So many people, and probably people listening right now, are going to think, yeah, I'm not sure. But until you get in it, until you see it in action, until you feel it, then you'll know what we're talking about.
So true. And, it's, this many years of working literally now with thousands of real estate investors and being an investor myself, I can say quite confidently that there's probably not a mistake that hasn't been made in that room. And I always say is that, don't go make those same mistakes again. You don't need to. It's really just about asking questions and really getting clear before you do certain things. And that is fundamentally what the value of a community of like-minded individuals is because they've been there, done that, to JG's point. So don't go reinvent the wheel. You don't need to. It's all been done before. And so that's really just a key point of what's powerful in that room. And one thing that I'll add to this is that, as a speaker and as the CEO, I've had certainly people come up to me and go, Patrick, you must know a lot about real estate. And I do, but I actually have to say that I don't even worry about it anymore, because anything I don't know, I can find out in, a few short handshakes and phone calls because of the community. So that, of course, is a resource that is open to anybody who's part of the community, and why it's so important to have one. The last part of being successful as a real estate investor, of course, is opportunities. And one of the things that we've learned in the past is that we can give you all the education in the world, but we now want to be a resource for you because we know that people get stuck. Analysis paralysis, lack of confidence, all sorts of things start to show up. But our goal is to support you in achieving your goals. As a team, that's one of the conversations we're constantly having. And so what we're doing is looking and considering, are there opportunities that we can direct you to? Can we align you with people that can get you into action? And so real estate is one of those opportunities that we talk about. Business in a Box is something, in our REIA, a real estate investment advisor, are next levels for some investors that are already on their way, well on their way. This could be the next level of opportunity for them. JG, do you want to say anything to that or not?
I would just like to say one thing, because I'm going to set this up because we're heading towards this, but I've had conversations with members in the past that have either been members for an amount of time, but All Access is really bringing a whole new level of service. Whether you've been a member before, whether you were back in the day and now you're coming back to the community, All Access is bringing a whole new elevated sense of what it means to be a member. And we're going to get into that, Patrick. I want to dig into all real experiences and fast summits, and that comes down to these opportunities. So I'll let you keep going for now.
Great. I'll keep moving forward there. So thanks very much for that. So the REIN member meetings, this actually, I took this picture just last week, I think it was, in Toronto. So our
Patrick,
members.
Can I pause? Can I pause you for a second? I just want to create a level of context here for a second, folks. So you guys have been awesome, by the way. I have never seen this many questions on a webinar ever. So fantastic.
Keep it up.
Oh, it's going to be tough.
My hat's off to you guys. So just so you guys know, I told you this webinar would be in 4 parts, right? We talk about, is real estate still relevant? We answered that question. The second part, we talk about the REIN way, the REIN system, and we've talked about that. The third part is now this, which is All Access. What is it to be part of the REIN community? So we're going to cover this quick. This is probably going to take us 3 to 5 minutes, and then we're going to get into the final part, which is the Q&A section. So Patrick, let's cover this in about 3 to 5 minutes. Let's get through what All Access is all about. Then we'll get to the Q&A, and then let's give these people a chance to get to know us even better.
Okay, cool. I'm looking forward to it. Okay, so All Access, this is really an overview of what it means to be All Access, be part of the REIN community. What is the value that you get? Why is it so important that you become a part of REIN and the All Access program? And first and foremost, the regular member meetings. So not every month, that's not true. About 9 or 10 months of the year, we have monthly meetings where you get to actually participate and be part of the community, where you're actually live, and we spend about 3 hours where we're delivering economic fundamentals. We're often delivering some research, market updates, and any number of conversations that we're having in a live environment, which also gives you the opportunity to meet others in the room. We have what we call the red file. I'll touch on that. We have real experiences, fast summits, and we're going to touch on all of those quickly. And we have award celebrations, so important to measure and have milestones, and we support you in when we celebrate those milestones with you. I'll put it that way. Your resource center is your member back office online. And so when you become a part of the All Access program, you actually have access to a back office which has all sorts of resources for you to use and to tap into. Legacy Power Tools. Legacy is an affiliated sister company that really supports you in terms of resources that you have at your disposal, at your fingertips to use. And then we have some VIP real estate opportunities. And we're going to talk about all that as we go forward here. That's just an overview. Now, this is a really important one from the RED file perspective. RED being an acronym for Research, Education, and Development. Now, at the member meetings, I just said we spend 3 hours at a member meeting and we do economic updates. Jennifer usually delivers a what's behind the curtain. We do lots of educational things. We sometimes have speakers. We have panels of experts to discuss what's going on. That's what goes on in the meeting. Now, the RED file is saying we need even more than that because we don't have enough time in that 3-hour meeting to really dig into some of the topics that are important to real estate investors.
Especially if I get really passionate, which I tend to do. And
if you only knew some of the backstage conversations that go on with Jennifer and I. Anyways, so the point is that Jennifer, all of us need more time to actually drill into what we believe is so important in terms of content that will support members taking action and buying real estate. So we look at market research, we talk to industry experts. The point is this. That looks just like this here. Exactly what we're doing now with experts could look like this. We could record this and then say, because maybe you couldn't make the Zoom meeting at 7 p.m. where I had a conversation or Jennifer had a conversation with an expert. But guess what? We're going to record it. And if you're there, great. If you're not, at least you get the benefit of having that RED file opportunity to look at the recording, listen in, and learn from that expert.
Well, and a perfect example of that, Patrick, with industry experts is Jennifer just having lunch yesterday with the chief economist of CIBC. And there's only a few people in the world that would love to meet the chief economist of anybody, and Jennifer's one of those people. So,
check out my Instagram. We did a selfie.
Jennifer would bring those kinds of industry experts, that and many more, to you, to the community, so you can understand what's happening in Canada's economy, so you can see what are the economic updates from the banks themselves. I mean, wow.
Yeah, and I know I've seen some questions about interest rates, and I want to share because the chief economist, Avery Schenfeld, he actually shared his deck with me, and I would love to share it with you guys. So I think I'm going to do that at SOS Calgary and share he's got some pretty cool slides. So in Calgary and in Toronto, I'm going to share a little bit of that as well. So stay tuned.
And this is such an important part of what we're doing as we go forward, which is tapping into technology. There's conversations to be had with accountants. There's conversations to be had with finance people. There's conversations to be had with actual strategy-focused experts. So I talk about agreements for sale, rent to own. It's hard to have those in a live without, not everybody's interested in an RTO or agreements for sale or certain aspects, but here we can expand the conversation, go deeper, and that's where a lot of that learning is going to live. So this one I'm really excited about. I think it's awesome. What's behind the curtain? Now, for the guests in this particular webinar, you may not understand what's behind the curtain. And I'll give you an overview of it, and that is that what's behind the curtain was really the brainchild of Don R. Campbell many years ago, which was to say what I said a little bit earlier. We get all drawn into the headlines. We get drawn into what some writer wrote in the headline, and soon we become headline readers, which are actually impacting us emotionally and mentally, and we start making decisions that are really not good decisions, but they're driven by the headlines. What behind the curtain is really us looking at a regular basis. Jennifer digs in on the research and the analysis and goes through a whole list of articles and behind the scene that's saying, here's some things that are showing up that you need to pay attention to, or here's some things that are showing up. Don't let them fool you. So what's behind the curtain is really a look into what the news headlines are, that may be throwing you off? The influencers, for example.
Yeah, it's really a curated newspaper just for real estate investors.
Yeah.
And the commentary of how it impacts you and what you need to know. And then because I have my master's degree in communication, study news sensationalism, we can get a little bit deeper on some of those sensational news stories that could maybe potentially throw a non-sophisticated investor off their game.
I can't even stress enough. I mean, aside from the education of how-tos, this research, imagine going out into the real estate market going, where should I invest and why should I invest, and actually having the answers to those, because now you understand how to get to those answers. That's really the power of this.
Patrick, it's not very often I have to dial you back, but your passion level for this research is quite high tonight. So whatever you had for dinner, peanut butter toast, have some more. I like it.
Okay, this is big stuff, big stuff. So the Always Seeking Knowledge webinar are webinars, once again, another layer like this, where we go in and we have interviews with real estate experts, what we call action takers, and they're going to be a range of topics. So we actually have REIN members, I'll give you an example, who we're going to be planning on, I'm planning on interviewing, or Jennifer, any number of us can do it, but we're really going to dig in. So fix and flip experts. Experts in, let's say, I'll give you an example, Kelowna. Gosh, we are really well connected anywhere, but I'm going to use Kelowna as an example where we can get on with what's really going on in Kelowna.
Well, interesting. You know what's really going on in Kelowna in 15 minutes is a REIN member meeting.
Right now.
Right now.
There you go. So always strategies,
is
opportunities, and solutions.
But this is where, Patrick, with the Always Seeking Knowledge webinars, this is where we get a chance to go deep. And I'll give you a perfect example of this. I watched a webinar that you and Barry McGuire did where, listen, Barry McGuire, you typically, if you can get him on the stage for 20, 30 minutes in a member meeting, that's fantastic. But the member meetings are only 3 hours, so we can't have them on there for 3 hours. But in this webinar, you went for several hours with Barry McGuire. I picked up on a strategy. Thank you very much. Thank you, Barry McGuire. I recently followed on that strategy, and we were able to do an assignment deal for a $30,000 profit because of the ASK webinar. So thank you for that, Patrick.
And I'm going to give you, Barry McGuire doesn't mean anything to really many people on this call, but I'm going to just give you something about Barry McGuire. Barry McGuire has been a real estate lawyer for 40 years. He's done in excess of 10,000 real estate deals, and many of them are specialty deals. His rate is $500 an hour, full stop. Now, some will go, well, that's ridiculous, but what he can accomplish in 15 minutes, $300 an hour guys will take 3 hours to get handled. So, but aside from all of that, Barry comes in and he shares his knowledge, and guess what? You may or may not ever do business with him, so it's not about that. The point is that that's the kind of knowledge and the depth of knowledge that we have access to on a regular basis, and as our community does. So real experiences are real estate aligning leaders. We're a big fan of acronyms, and some people like them, some people don't, but we use them, and it's really real estate aligning leaders. And the real experiences are a perfect example that we just used, that Jennifer just did this past weekend. Well, she went to Fort St. John, BC, and Boston.
January.
In January. Oh my gosh. And but guess what? Northern BC is a real happening place, because you've got LNG Canada doing what they're doing up there, which is a multi-billion-dollar project in a very small area. So that translates to jobs, and that translates to GDP, and that translates to people needing a place to live, all of those stories, and as well as Site C Dam. So lots of stuff going on in Northern BC, but as a sophisticated real estate investor, many had the opportunity to get on a plane and go, I'm going to look at investing in Fort St. John. So they fly in. Our strategic partners up there had a bus, and they toured around the area to find out really what is going on in Fort St. John, really.
So yeah, while I was up there, I applied the property goldmine scorecard and all the details and checklists that we have in our acre manual and that we learn in all of our tools. And I actually applied it boots on the ground, doing the diligence. And in addition to that, we had a lot of fun, maybe a little bit of wine, and people took action. And they actually, you know, a number of folks bought places while we were there. And it was just a really fun, great experience for all involved.
But that's really what it's about, though, right, Jennifer? It's really about, experiences is the key word of everything that we take from this. Experiences is the key, where we're talking about boots on the ground. Whether you're going to go see a fix and flip project, whether you're going to go see a turnkey deal, this is about putting people in the field, isn't it?
Yeah, you bet. And if you want a little taste of that, go check out our Facebook page, Reporting Live on Location.
Reporting Live, Jennifer Hunt. And she, in all of her research, she kept it actually interesting. Okay, we'll just keep that going.
That's a compliment.
That's a compliment. No, seriously.
Thanks.
So our FAST summits are an opportunity a couple times a year where finance, acquire, sell, transact. And really what that is an opportunity for us where we're working diligently in the background, leveraging the fact that REIN members have transacted over $5.4 billion worth of real estate. We have a national organization, a national community across the country, which then allows us to negotiate some deals that REIN members and real estate investors might be interested in looking at. Now, I want to clear something up here. Not clear something up. I want to make something clear. And that is that we're not buying real estate to resell it. And I'm saying that is important. We're opening the doors to opportunities, but we're not buying real estate to resell it. And the reason that's important is that we don't, if we were buying real estate and reselling it, didn't matter where we'd buy it, we would not be unbiased. We'd have an actual bias as to whether we thought that region was good or not. So we're looking always at the economic fundamentals. And so these opportunities are in top towns, and they're places that we've negotiated perhaps deals on behalf of real estate investors. Anything anybody want to add to that?
I would only say that the FAST Summit and what happens at the FAST Summit goes through the property ladder, goes through the acre system. It goes through what REIN stands for. It goes through the REIN way. Thanks
for that. That's a perfect, and it's really about getting REIN members in action, giving them the resources to do that. So the All Access Resource Center is the back office, and we'll go to the next slide here, because in that back office, there's a portfolio manager, there's a mortgage calculator, there's a property analyzer. And that property analyzer, for example, when you enter all the fields, you look at that property, you can manipulate the numbers to say, okay, if this is this, you create scenarios, but then you could actually take a property that, I'll use this as an example, that you say, this works, this makes sense. You can then forward a PDF pro forma off to your banker, your finance guy, your potential joint venture partner, and actually have those numbers captured, and it stores those numbers as well. So all the properties that you look at. The portfolio manager is you're growing your portfolio, you're keeping those doors in there, updating them. It tells you all about the performance of that particular portfolio. The back office also has a number of places where this is really important to understand. First off, the critical documents. That's everything from lease agreements nationally to templates for joint venture agreements or co-venture agreements, and they're all in Word documents, so that they're all provincially broken down, but they're in Word documents so that you can make them your own, make adjustments. That document segment is absolutely, that on its own is worth the cost of membership. The workshops, we record all of our meetings right across Canada. So even though you might be in Ontario, you would have access to an Alberta meeting recording so that you would hear what we talked about in Alberta. You would hear maybe from the boots on the ground panel experts that we have up there, market updates, of course, what's behind the curtain that Jennifer produces. That's just another example. Jennifer, you look like you want to say something. Yes or no? No? Okay. Our research reports live there. Our other interviews live there. So all of the access that we do. So for this meeting, for example, if this was a panel of experts, we'd record it, and then you would have access to it if you could get on the live meeting. JG, this is one I like you to speak to because you've spoke to it many times. You've also been a part of it in the background. So why don't you speak to the technology that REIN has access to?
Well, and again, the people that are on this call are fairly new to REIN. They're fairly, this is the first time you guys are hearing about maybe REIN or what we have to offer. So just know this, 26 years ago, Don R. Campbell talked about changing the Canadian real estate conversation from a real estate speculation game to a real estate investing game. That was 26 years ago. Here we are today, and REIN is doing it again. As the Real Estate Intelligence Network, REIN and its sister company, Legacy Council of Canada, we are pioneering the way forward with technology. So we have 3 technological platforms that are coming out this year. The first one's coming out like next week, and it's called REIS. And REIS is the Real Estate Investment Sharing Service. It's a peer-to-peer network of real estate investment opportunities for real estate investors by real estate investors. So it's kind of like pocket listings in your pocket, right? So it's super cool. It's all app-based. It's all on your Android, on your Apple. Super cool, mobile-based, mobile-driven. On top of that, so here's REIS. On top of that lays this platform called REI Analytica. And REI Analytica is an artificial intelligence platform that is essentially a calculator that is going to spit out some incredible information that's going to give you buy signals in your market, sell signals in your market, fixed signals, flip signals, refinance signals, all kinds of cool stuff, all data crunched, all calculated through artificial intelligence. That's REI Analytica.
And if I can, JG, all of that artificial intelligence is based on the formulas and the processes of REIN for 27 years that are tried, tested, and true. So starting from a really cool foundation and base.
100%. And then beside REI Analytica, again on top of REIS, sits Ada. And the best way to look at Ada is like your Siri or your Google Assistant. Ada is your personal real estate assistant, which is going to communicate with you. She stands for Artificially Intelligent Digital Advisor. So Ada and REI Analytica work together to crunch the numbers, give you the buy signals, sell signals, fix signals, flip signals, refinance signals, when to get in, when to get out. And that sits on top of REIS, which provides you with the opportunities.
Thanks for that, JG. And this really just speaks to the technology that we will continue to be leaders in this industry. Special events, one of those things that because of who we are and because of who our partners are, we have access to some cool events every so often, and we send those out to members for the opportunity. This happens to be a Tony Robbins event, and it just gave members the opportunity to get access to tickets that they wouldn't normally have in the general public. So when we look at strategies, opportunities, and solutions, and when we say, what is it to be a REIN member? We cut to the chase. There's easily $11,000 worth of value. That's a real number. It's not a made-up number. It actually is calculable. And that's $5,495 as a regular price. If you're on this webinar and you're part of this conversation, we're dropping the $5,495. We're dropping, you can save $2,000. And tonight we can give you that. We're offering this for $3,495. And JG, before I go on, you want to add to this?
Well, I want to say one thing, which is this, and we're going to Q&A right now, guys. And this part, I promised 3 to 5 minutes, and we definitely went way longer than that, so my apologies for that. But what I do want to say is this. If you're ready to go on All Access and you say, I'm in, I want to join, I've heard enough, I want to go, then put your name and information in the chat, and one of our real estate consultants will follow up with you. That's option number 1. Option number 2, you might say, this seems incredible, but I got to think about it, and actually, I want to test drive it. If you want to come to one of our member meetings, you can come once for free as think of it like a test drive, like you're test driving a car. And again, if you want to do that, you can put your name and phone number in the chat. One of our real estate consultants will call you, set you up with a free test drive, if you will. You'll be able to join us at one of the REIN meetings. You get to meet Patrick. You get to meet Jennifer. You'll get to hang out with some of our real estate consultants. And you get to hang out with all of our team. So that's the way to take advantage of this. So Patrick, thank you for that. Let's just leave that up for now, Patrick. Yep. But let me start asking the questions because, man, we have had so many awesome questions. So you guys, I'm going to extract myself from this. I'm going to put both of you on the hot seat here, and I'm going to start asking these questions here. So here we go. First question. Jennifer, baby, this one's for you.
Oh,
Is this a great question? This comes from Peter. Peter says, is Brampton in a bubble?
ooh, that's such a great question. So Brampton is, well, first of all, I don't believe in a real estate bubble. So we actually monitor the market, and then we know that we are strategies and tactics that can be employed at each segment of the bubble. So back to your question, Brampton is number 5 in our top 10 towns and cities report for Ontario. And last year, when we completed that particular location and did the full complete analysis, REIN real estate cycle clock, it was at the end of recovery. So now that said, end of recovery, you might think that it's sort of, what does that mean? Now that was last year. At Toronto Acre, my research team is crunching the numbers right now to look at where Brampton is specifically in the real estate cycle now. So we're going to be releasing that at Acre Toronto, likely on the second day. So it's March 29th through March 31st. So on March 30th, that information, it might be on the 31st, don't quote me, that information will be available, the updated version.
Very cool. That's great. Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Jennifer. Next question. Edward asks, once you hit the financial wall, what are my options for further finances? Great question, especially with today's mortgage fiasco.
What was it?
Who wants to take that one?
Again, I got distracted by my presentation.
So yeah, absolutely. When you hit a financial wall, oh my goodness. And you know what, JG, right? You'll always do, because at some point, in order to get qualified for a mortgage, there's a cap, and there's banking caps, and there's, qualification rules, and they all become more challenging. So totally appreciate
it's actually the only guarantee that I ever make to people is I guarantee at some point you're going to run out of money. That I guarantee.
Yes. So everybody's got to learn as many tools and tricks and tips and tactics and ways to have at your disposal for whenever you might potentially need them. So a couple of ways that when you do hit that cap, I know that for me, my first move when I got started and I ran out of money, I went, and I had enough, experience. I went straight to multifamily, so commercial real estate, where they base the banks and the financiers base your mortgage qualification on the asset itself and less on the person or the business that's buying it. So that was my first move. Other things that I've employed and worked at for different tools is a rent-to-own strategy, or a tactic rather. And that rent-to-own, that's where you get a tenant who may not be able to qualify to buy a house right now, but they're interested in buying a place or property. And this is where if you have no money whatsoever, this is what I call the sandwich lease option. Or the sandwich rent to own. So you find someone who's got a property. I think Patrick and JG and I, we've all got properties. So you find somebody who's got property, and then you find a tenant buyer, and you become basically the broker or the relationship that brings those people together. So that's another great way. And another one that, as you just mentioned it earlier, JG, that you did was wholesale.
And I think I just want to expand on that a little bit, is that the finance wall, there's two parts to it. Number one is having making sure you have that plan put together. So sitting down with an expert to look at your financial house, if you will, to make sure your financial house in order is really one way of making sure that you don't hit it sooner than you want to or should, because there's always opportunities out there. Secondly, is that the more that you understand that you have some expertise in an area that people don't. I'm going to give you a perfect example. Right now, you're here, you're on a webinar, you've been on this webinar an hour and a half. I've been talking too long. Jennifer hasn't been talking enough. JG's trying to push me along. All of the things that happen. But you're putting up with it because you're really interested in real estate. That is an indication that you are something that a lot of people aren't. You're already in the overachiever range. You're not striving to be mediocre. Mediocrity lives in making an excuse not to be on this webinar to learn about real estate. So that in itself is a statement of character, which means that you learn and that you're willing to go out and become an expert in something And those people that have got some money or don't have some time, they're going, okay, let's partner up, because I don't know what you know, and I don't have the kind of time that you have, and so I'm willing to invest with you. And that's where capital often shows up.
Yeah, the two things I'd add to that, and we got to move on to other questions. Patrick, first of all, put it back to your last slide, please, for me. And second of all, Edward, great question on the financial wall. I promise you, you're going to hit it, because we've all hit it, all of us on this screen, and many others. Jennifer gave you 3 great options, and two other options. That one is evident, which is JVs, co-venture money, co-venture partners, which we can definitely show you how to do. And the other one, which I've been using a ton of this year, is private funds. Private funds have a different financial qualification than bank funds. So you can access private funds in places that otherwise you couldn't. So, and right now, and I'll say this, and this is my, now we're talking about not REIN's opinion necessarily, but my opinion. So Jennifer, either feel free to either completely deny everything I'm saying or back me up. But there's a lot of money in the system right now. There's a ton of money that wants to go to work, but they don't know where to put it. And they're looking for people to put it into. And I'm telling you, this is a big opportunity for everybody that's sitting on the sidelines right now. Huge opportunity. But you got to get educated. You got to get the right partner. Let me tell you, REIN could be that right partner. Okay, enough about this. Another question. Bryce asks a good question. He says, do most people refinance their 25-year mortgages every 5 years?
No. I think that's an interesting question. My first response is no, and I think I'll slow that one down and say, it depends, because refinancing it depends what your strategy is, what your exit strategy is, and what it is that you're trying to achieve. And if refinancing is part of the strategy because you're refinancing and you want to buy more real estate, cash flow makes sense. So there is no rule. There is a strategy that may apply given what your goals are, and that's one way to achieve that goal.
Yep, that's very good, Patrick. Another question, and this one's really good, is what are your thoughts on buying new build condos from a developer in a city like Calgary, where there's an abundance of units being built in a depressed market? Now, there's a lot going on in that question.
That's a lot. Great question.
I like that. So Jennifer, I'll kick that one over to you, because a couple assumptions being made in there. I don't know if they're true or not, but abundance of units in a depressed market. What are your thoughts on new build condos in Calgary?
Wow. Yeah, there are a lot of assumptions, and there's a lot going on in that question. So I'm just going to say a disclaimer, because there's a lot there to address.
Can I simplify it? Can I simplify this question, Jennifer?
Sure.
And JG, is that there is a lot going on in that question. So, the only thing I would ask on that is, why are you asking? So in other words, do you have a strategy in mind that so why would you want to consider that? So it really boils down to, why would you consider investing in it? So what's your view of why you think that might be an opportunity, and will that actually support what your strategy is?
Well, let me continue, because this is he added some clarification.
Right.
He says this: he has a condo in Calgary that's cash flow negative, and to his calculations, will be cash flow negative for some time. His question is, does it make sense to hold this property long term, even if it's cash flow negative?
Oh, wow. Yeah. So that goes to for example, the 5 ways to win. If you can, so again, we'd love to have cash flow, and we recommend that you have cash flow, but you're already in it and you don't have cash flow. If you're able to support it, then I'd recommend doing the math on what your equity is, what your pay down is, and that type of thing. Now I'm going to switch over back to the first part of that question with the real estate cycle and a depressed market. And yes, it has been depressed for a long time, and you're going to continue to see that it feels a little awkward and funky, but the green shoots are there, and we're in the midst of, the green shoots are really there. The GDP has has kicked in, the economic events have kicked in for the positive, and Calgary is in recovery. It's starting slowly to come in, and we do say that very cautiously. It's going to be a very slow recovery. So it depends. I mean, you can look at sort of probably a 2-year window or so of it still taking some time, but we are seeing that rents are increasing in Calgary right now. And that's partly because, and there's so many factors. I mean, remember, there's 40 indicators and market influencers. But what we're seeing is that because of the stress test, the mortgage qualification stress test that occurred last year, and the rising interest rates, people aren't able to buy. So as a result, that's putting an upward pressure on rental market. So if you can, I'm assuming that that condo is rentable. So you want to make sure that you've got a tenant in it, but if that's, as long as it's got, you know, no rental restrictions, I should say. I'm making that assumption about your property. The rental market is going to be very strong. And what was it? I think it was just a rent forecast, and Calgary was forecast. I remember Toronto was forecast for their 2019 rent increases at 11%, and Calgary is, I believe, at 6%. And I'm just checking that stat because there's a number of reasons for that, including the fact that we have Canada's immigration policies. It's on CNN and BBC that we've got 1 million people coming to Canada in the next 3 years. And where are they going? They're going to big cities, and Calgary is one of those. So it's something
Beautiful.
to consider.
Can I, and I'll dig a little bit deeper on this question. I don't know what its negative cash flow is.
Yeah.
On that particular property. So if you throw that in there, but let's say it's, you know, it boils down to this. I look at a negative cash flow property in these circumstances because you can't necessarily exit it, especially in Calgary in a softer market. So let's say it's $300 a month. It's upside down. Let's just say that's the number, and I'm just picking a number. So $3,600 a year. And we look at what Jennifer just explained is a 3-year cycle, perhaps, that you may be upside down $300 a month for the next 3 years. So $3,600 $3,600 a year for 3 years, and let's say that's what it was. So now you're looking at, you know, $11,000, whatever the rough math is, 10.5. So that's $10,500. What would it cost you to exit the property today? Right? It may cost you more than that. That's part of the decision-making process. If you're a bit of a higher income earner and $300 a month is like annoying, but it doesn't shut you down, then guess what? It's like a forced savings account. You're actually putting $300 a month into that account, and you actually are having principal buy down because your interest rates are quite low. So you're actually getting good buy down. So it's not the best use of your money, but it is actually like a forced savings account. And as annoying as it is, if you can kind of afford it, then it doesn't matter.
And there's tax advantages to that as well.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
So back to our favorite answer is it depends. And that's why it's so important to get a portfolio review consultation with one of our guys and gals, because it really every situation is different. I just wanted to quickly follow up. As I said, 6% in Calgary, and that's not true. It is a 4%. The forecast is a 2019 forecast for rent is 4% increase, according to some sources.
Very cool. That's great. So Jennifer, this was a great question. You didn't, I don't think you straight answered it a while ago, so I'm going to ask it again and force you for a straight answer, because that's what we're all about here, is will interest rates continue to rise in the short-term future? What are your thoughts? Since you're having lunch with the chief economist of this.
If we knew the real answer to that, we wouldn't be sitting here. We'd be sitting on a boat somewhere probably.
Perfect. But I get to quote the chief economist. So just let me pull up my notes from yesterday. The chief economist from CIBC, Avery Schenfeld, and they say that the CIBC predicts that there will not be any more increases this until the summer at least, and more for this year, and that they are not going to go to 3%. So that was the initial plan from the Bank of Canada in October, that they were going to put it, 3% is considered a neutralizing interest rate. And that was what they were saying in October. This is Stephen Paulotes from the Bank of Canada. And in December, they changed their tune. kind of stepping back a little bit from that. And in January, on January 9th, we were going to see another increase. We were waiting for that, and they did not increase it. So that's the first time in about a 1.5-year cycle that we have not seen an increase on a fairly regular basis to our interest rates. Now, what what the Bank of Canada then said on the release of that flat is that they are intentionally being ambiguous about it. There's like literally quote unquote that they over time they may increase interest rates, but we are wanting to be ambiguous.
Nice.
It's pretty intense. So we watch that really, really closely. It's an important question. It's important because it drives so many other of our market influencers, and including, you know, our economy as well as our foreign exchange, which impacts, you know, how Canada's exports do, and that's really something that needs to drive our economy, which of course is our health. But so not in the near term, and maybe one more is what the experts are predicting for the year.
Jennifer, you've been hanging out with these economists too much. You're starting to answer questions like economists now.
Yeah, you are, yeah.
Really? I'll take that as a compliment.
Okay, that's great.
Of course you will.
A couple more questions. Great question from Peter. Is this system good for Canada properties only, or does it apply to U.S. properties as well?
Ooh.
Do you want me to take the first answer then?
Sure.
Because I know Jennifer will want to go. You know, here's the fundamental part of it, is when you're buying and you're looking at the economic fundamentals that drive a market, it doesn't matter what the market is. If you're looking at the economic fundamentals, it all applies. Is there GDP growth? Is there job growth? Is there rising incomes? Is there in-migration? Is there population growth? Those are all. It doesn't matter it doesn't matter what country, what city, if any of those things all apply, then you can actually follow where the real estate market is going to go.
So I 100% agree with one caveat, and that is I believe that the system works in almost every country, particularly more developed countries, and where the political stability is in place. So that's the only caveat, because the market influencers, you need to be able to actually have property rights. Let's just start there.
And some people would argue that Canada doesn't have political stability right now.
Not these days, DC speculation tax.
All right. Okay, guys. I'm gonna have to reel you guys in here. So another great question from Peter is, do the scorecards work for both residential and commercial properties? That's a great question.
Mm-hmm. So the REIN Gold Mine scorecard absolutely works for both commercial, industrial, office, retail, for sure. And the scorecard that we use for the real estate cycle also works for both all types of properties. The only thing about the real estate clock, like in terms of where it is in the market, the only thing I would say is that typically if you're looking at office or industrial, so industrial will just be a little bit ahead, and commercial and office and retail will just be even a little bit more ahead, and then the residentials, because the industrial is where the market is going to get the biggest boom, and the commercial, the sort of office and retail, would get the biggest boom because they're going to be hosting the new company or whatever have you to come in.
Okay, very good. Well,
that
that's
drives
great.
the GDP on the formula.
Patrick, Jennifer, go ahead, Patrick. Go ahead.
I want to say one thing. This is a little bit of, I don't know, call it boasting rights or bragging rights. I want to just talk about, you know, when we talk about research and the certainty that we have about research, for those of who might be from Ontario or familiar with Hamilton, REIN started talking about Hamilton 12 years ago. We started telling REIN members to buy Hamilton and Barrie, actually, 12 years ago, based on the economic fundamentals. And I can tell you that 12 years ago, when we were saying that, people were looking at Hamilton, Steeltown, going, are you guys out of your freaking minds, right? And we stuck by our guns. We looked at the economic fundamentals, and yes, there's been ups and downs. There's been influencers, because there was at one point some changes to landlording rules that were, threatened, and some that took place and some that didn't. But the point is that it was very, in our world, predictable. And there's a lot of REIN members that made a ton of dough investing in Hamilton when everybody else was going, you guys are crazy. They said, nope, I get the economic fundamentals, and they started buying. So I just want to say that is that to Jennifer's point around what drives real estate markets, it works, and we see it time and time again.
Yeah, I think that's such a key thing what you just talked about there, and it's so important that you follow the long-term real estate success formula because it's really truly at the foundation of it all. So, listen, Patrick, Jennifer, we've been at this now for 2 hours, which is.
Okay, I can go for another 2.
This is just so much fun.
I know, it's crazy.
Everybody else is having fun because we're having fun.
Hey, and I want one more thing, JG, only because I don't want to miss it. I've had it on my list for a long time. No, this is totally different, and that was because I saw it in the chat. Somebody had asked, is there a podcast that you would recommend? And I host a podcast called The Everyday Millionaire, and I recommend that podcast. And just today, by the way, because he's an interesting cat, and I just love the man, I did an interview that we released today. It was Daryl Sittler, former captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and he's just such a cool cat. And I wanted to just put that plug in for the podcast because somebody had asked.
And Patrick, he has a really interesting real estate story too.
He has really. Did I?
Yeah,
okay.
He's got a really interesting story about real estate as well. So I'm sure in terms of.
Oh, he's got lots of interesting stories, and yes, real estate is one of them. So yes.
Wonderful. Well, listen, folks, thank you so much. Everyone who stuck around. I mean, my gosh, we thought we'd get this done in 60 to 70 minutes. Here we are 2 hours later. We've had a great time. I mean, I know we can keep going forever, but if you want to join us at one of our REIN, you want to give us a test drive, put your name and phone number in the chat. One of our real estate consultants will call you. If you're ready to go, and many of you, by the way, incredible, all the information you put in that chat, by the way, is only visible by us, so it's private, just so you know. But a lot of people have just said, listen, I'm ready to go. You guys have a great system. You guys have this awesome 15-step system. I love it. I'm in. Here's my number. Call me. I want to get started. Fantastic. Many of you want to get started because you want to save the $2,000, and why wouldn't you? That's great. But if you want to test drive us, whether you want to get started or whether you have questions that we haven't been able to answer because we've been at this for 2 hours, put your name and phone number in there. We will be happy to get in touch with you. One of our real estate consultants will call you, get your questions answered, get you into a meeting, and get you started. So, Patrick, Jennifer, thank you so much for your time, guys. I really appreciate it. It's been an amazing ride tonight, and we look forward to the next 2-hour webinar again.
wait for the 2.5 day acres, hey?
Don't get us going. Maybe you can go have a nap next time. Thanks, everybody.
You know what, guys? If you can imagine, if we could do this in 2 hours of just riffing and ad hoc, imagine what we could do with 2.5 days of structured content.
It's intense.
Crazy.
Awesome.
That's great,
Thanks,
guys.
everybody.
Thank you so much. Good night, Jennifer. Good night, Patrick. Good night, folks.